You do back up your system, right? I mean, you actually did it, right? I mean, I know you said you did it, but you actually did do it, right? And you tested it to make sure you could undo it, right? Well, we're going to talk about backing up your system today, so stick around. Secure Digital Life.
This is a Security Weekly production.
Welcome to Secure Digital Life. And you type in AAA porn or whatever it is you're typing in. So I'm sorry, I was at a PG show.
And I'm really excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here because somebody needs to know what's going on.
That's right.
Okay, so
Now somebody has to drink this.
It's another day. It's another episode.
Yeah, he's looking at the wrong camera.
Oh, you put my camera over here. Cut. Basically, forget you ever saw that. I think actually forgetting you ever saw that would really be a good idea at this point. OMG, OMG, OMG! Look! It's Russ.
I was going to seep over into the
He's
fridge.
actually here. I know that you thought that Russ was no longer real, that he'd been placed into some kind of like cybernetic environment.
Oh, that's 10 years.
Yeah, well, we're waiting. So I'm like signed up already. I registered so I can be cybernetic, and I'm just like, cast off these physical bonds.
Yeah.
Yes. But I haven't. They haven't called back. So
Oh, well,
yeah,
soon.
but you never know what's going to happen. So, but today we want to talk about backup. Speaking of being cybernetically stored, wait till you have to back that up, and you'll probably want to, because it's like, what will happen when like you get it's like, oops, my hard drive failed. And
I remember reading an article once, just the theoretical, it was a theoretical postulate about how much information the brain can hold in terms of gigabytes. And it was somewhere around, I want to say a petabyte or whatever. I mean, but how would you define that? I mean, there's just, it's kind of interesting.
Petabyte, you could put that at your house now.
Yeah, right.
I used to want to have a terabyte at my house, then I had a terabyte at my house, and now I want to have a petabyte at my house. But I'm already like past, I haven't got the petabyte, but I'm actually like at the point where I'm going like, an exabyte.
Yeah, skip peta, go to
might be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because then I could store me and my family and my cats, and we could all just be on the server in our house. There wouldn't actually be anybody there anymore. It'd just be like you're looking out through the HAL dot, like,
oh,
hey, Dave.
It's like Sims, but with,
it would be like Sims.
Instead of AI, it's
only I'd be the guy that played Sims with Pootie Pie controlling everything. It's like, watch, I'll put you in the pool with the gasoline. Yeah, that kind of where are we going to talk about? Oh, we're going to talk about backups today. Yeah, so backups, I've had, I'm sure you have too, you always get that call where a friend, neighbor, family member, random person on the street, homeless guy walks up and goes, you think you could get this back? I had this on this laptop, and they always hand you the laptop that's covered in like, you don't know what. Yeah, like dog
vomit sometimes.
Vomit, dog drool, blood, various bodily fluids, maybe questionable substances. You don't even know what they are. And they go, you could fix this, right? It's kind of your hobby, right? It'd be fun. And it's like, right.
Yep.
All my family pictures for my wedding, my funerals, and everything else are on there. And they all quit working. And it just made this sound and went,
I bill $300 an hour, right?
That's what I tell them next. 300. I tell them 500 for that because I don't want to touch the thing, and I have to pay for the gloves. I have them too.
Yeah.
But so the question that I asked was, you do back up your system, right? So there was some new ransomware. If you were watching ESW last week or any of those shows, I was talking about this new one that was in England, and they were talking about how every day it sends you a notice and it says, I'm going to shred 24 files today.
Oh man.
Unless you pay. And, of course, if I was writing that ransomware, it would pick funny files to tell you about, like, I found a picture called Wendy. How'd you like me to shred that? Yeah? You want to keep Wendy?
You want Wendy? You want Wendy?
You want Wendy? I don't. Oh, God!
God.
Now, send that. Be sure and send those Bitcoins in, baby. Because if you don't send them, guess what? This one called Donnie's Wedding. God!
Yeah.
It's like,
well, at the rate that Bitcoin is falling, that's going to be worth about 30 cents right now.
Yeah, so if you just wait a few days, it might be worth 24 files. Yeah. It's like, oh, yeah, here's your 50 bucks.
It's a buck a file.
But ransomware is really terrible. That's one reason to back things up. Yeah. And you got to be careful about how you back things up, because that becomes a real problem if you don't back things up correctly, because ransomware can just jump onto your backups and you're done. I did a forensics case in China one time, and the backups were actually corrupted by the same thing that corrupted the main files. So there's big differences in why you back up. Because if you're just backing up for hardware failure, so you're waiting on that, if you don't know what the is, that's the drive head landing on the platter while it's spinning. That means that it just chewed up your hard drive and it's pretty much gone. And unless you want to spend unless you want to spend a lot of money, you're not going to get anything back from those drives. So that's one kind of backup, but there's also the backup of just corruption. So that means you screwed it up. There's the backup of hackers attacking your data for some reason with malware or with ransomware and all those kind of things. So you really have to talk a lot about different approaches to backing things up if you really want to actually have backups. And
just to be clear, too, if it's a ransomware attack, ransomware doesn't only attack locally connected devices.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's also, they can also infiltrate NAS and other network storage devices.
And cloud stuff.
There you go.
So ransomware can jump from your files because if you use something like OneDrive, the OneDrive files that are being synced are actually localized. So if they get encrypted, they just sync right up back to OneCloud. So you jump on your OneCloud and go, ha, 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 I'll teach you, ransomware guys. And you're like, oh, wait, these are encrypted too.
You're getting schooled yourself.
Uh-huh. So there's some things that you need. So I'm going to give you some terms first. So one of the terms is full backup. And full backup is a nightmare these days. It used to be bad. Now it's worse because you start looking at the quantity of stuff. I actually did this yesterday because I was thinking of the show. So I said, I'm going to sit down and evaluate my own backup stuff because I'm always telling you to do stuff that I don't do. And full backup meant on my desktop machine alone was, I think it was in the range of about 25 terabytes. And a lot of it's junk, but I don't want to go through it. I'm a hoarder. I'm a digital hoarder.
And I hear people say, well, bus technology is getting a lot better. So you've got, USB-C or Thunderbolt 3 technologies, eSATA, right? And of course, they're processing 10 gigabytes per second or theoretical speeds, but it still takes for 25 terabytes. It still takes a while.
So that's one problem that you got is just the volume of your hoarding. Now, you can go through and try to clean up, but you may not. Then there's sort of what I call file backup. So file backup means that, like, you've got a Word file, like your term paper or whatever, and you save that file somewhere. And when we've all done that, so you're working on that term paper, and you go, oh, my God, this is due tomorrow. And then, oops, the power goes out. I always remember,
you put it on one of these USB flash drives.
So you have little temporary media, you got DVDs, you got flash drives, you could back it up to your phone, and of course you can back that stuff up to the cloud, and you can make I make second copies of stuff because I fairly well trust the hardware side of the cloud. I mean, I know that there's arguments about that, but really because of they've spread things out, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end, I trust that pretty well. So if I make a second copy of it, give it a different name just as a sort of stopping point, that's my file backup thing.
I have one of my clients also does this religiously. He thinks, he considers a backup to be, what he'll do is he'll take an attachment, email it to himself, and he considers that to be a backup.
Well, it is of sorts. I mean, especially if it's on Google Mail or Gmail or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Because that file actually may be sitting on another server somewhere, and a lot of people do that, and it's not. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, none of these are the end.
Right.
So the thing you need to understand is that none of this is like this one big bang solution that's going to save you. So you have to think about the threats. Another one is a mirror. So a mirror is where you take everything and you just duplicate it. So a lot of people think that's a backup, but it's a good backup for hardware failure. So if you think your hard drive is going to go, then okay, you go, aha, but I have a mirror hard drive. And I just pull the mirror out and I can plug it back in.
Like in RAID, which we'll talk about later.
Mirrors are not going to save you from a hack. From you accidentally typing format C:, or RM-RF star or something like that, because all those things are going to wipe the drive, and it's going to wipe the mirror too, because it's a mirror. So those kind of things become problems. And then differential backups. So this is in some ways this is the most dangerous one, but it's also the fastest one. So differentials are just where anytime you make a change to whatever space you've defined, that change is moved up. And so this is how a lot of like online backup systems work, where they just monitor your status. And when you save a new copy, that copy's uploaded and it's put into a folder. and they just match it up every time. And that's a pretty common thing that you see people do as well.
Yeah, and I'm a Mac guy, as you probably all know already. And when I go home, I have a time capsule, a time vault, excuse me. And so Apple searches through all the things that have changed on my computer, and it does. The initial backup is a full backup, so that's 256 gigs, roughly. And then every subsequent backup is incremental or differential. And it just the changes.
Right.
So.
And that's fine too, but that may not save you either, because the differential backup's still subject to, if it gets hacked, if it gets encrypted, if it gets targeted, the incremental backup or the differential backup is just going to move everything over.
That's right.
Power failure can do you in on those as well, so it can cut that off or corrupt it right in the process. So the answer to that, of course, is that all those things end up being part of your backup strategy. So something I always talk to clients about is and people. So this thing goes from just you all the way up to IBM or HP or the federal government or whatever. I talk to people about the horizon, and the horizon is about, you need to think about these different points from which you could recover. So what is your time horizon that you say, I do a lot of work every day, and my system changes significantly every day because I save papers, I save updates and whatever. Could you recover that? So if just right now, while you're watching this show, everything stops, and you say, okay, I got to build from scratch right now. And I don't mean you're gonna grab the backup disk and put it in. I mean, you literally say, it's all gone. Like a lightning bolt hit my computer and it melted into a bubbling puddle of slag. And what am I going to do? Yep. I mean, how far back can I go? What do I need to go back to? Do you need that term paper from last year? Maybe you don't.
And for corporate, those are usually part of a DRP or disaster
absolutely
recovery plan.
And so sometimes
right
but you also have to ask yourself then, what could you not live without?
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff that you have and you say, oh, I don't care if I lost those term papers from 2 years ago. And like, I go back like 5 years on school stuff, and I archive it then. So I actually take it and I put it on DVDs, literally, and I just burn it on DVDs and I put them in a file somewhere. Yeah. And then I get that stuff off my hard drive. But I've got 5 years worth of stuff from class, and I need that backed up. But even if I lost all that, okay, I'll manage. I mean, I can live without it. But the stuff people come to me with that they can't live without is money. So when you've got tax records, you've got bank records, you've got all kinds of stuff like that on your drive. I've had people come in and say, can you recover this? Pictures. You take pictures with your phone. So people take thousands of pictures. Russ takes lots and lots of pictures of everywhere he goes. And in the old days, you had negatives. You actually had film negatives. And you could take those film negatives and put them in, people did, and they put them in safety deposit boxes so that if they ever lost their pictures, their wedding pictures, their kids' pictures, their baby's birth or whatever, they could go to the safety deposit box, pull the negatives, and actually have them reprinted. But today, your pictures are electronic. And I even know somebody who came to me and said, I converted all the pictures of my family that belonged to my parents and my grandparents, and I converted them all to digital formats. And I was like, oh, cool. And he said, yeah, it was cool until we actually threw all the pictures away and then lost the digital copies. And I was like, man. You threw them away? And he was like, well, that was the whole point of digitizing them, was we don't want to keep all these books. And I was like, he was like, you think you could get them back off the laptop? And I'm like, oh, well, what happened to the laptop? And he said, well, I dropped it. I actually dropped it, and it fell out of the car onto the pavement. Oof. And it broke. And then it, and it won't start. When you turn it on, it goes, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's done.
Yeah, that head's hitting that platter.
And so the first thing you're going to hear from me is, well, do you have backups? And he was like, well, I'm not sure. And I'm like, then you probably don't. Yep. And so what can you live without? So you really need to make a list of things that are on your systems that these are the things. These are the directories. And I like to put stuff like that in directories. And I know what those directories, so there's a lot of junk on there. Yep. But I like to know what's in those directories that is like, this is stuff I can't live without. And in fact, it's easier if you just mirror those directories. It takes up a lot of space. But if you just say, okay, I got 2 copies of it, and so here's just a backup, then you know in that tree that says, I cannot live without this, you could back up that tree of things. So if you've got pictures and you've got financial records or whatever, you could put them under there, and then you could pull that back. And so could you build back from records if you had to do that? And a lot of companies can't, especially today. And they say, well, we don't keep those written receipts anymore. And it's like, well, okay, what if this system is gone? And I don't mean it's like it fails. I mean, like, what if somebody steals it and runs out the door with it, like tonight? And they go, well, I think there's some backup somewhere. So the other question that you need to ask yourself as you think about backups is, how long can you be down?
Yeah.
And you may say, Doug, I'm just a person. I'll be fine. Huh. Like, I don't know about you, but I get itchy when my phone doesn't work. Can you find your way home? I was somewhere with my daughter in China, and I was like, if our phones quit working right now, we would have no idea where our hotel is, because the address of the hotel we're staying in is like on my phone.
Or I'm embarrassed to say this, but where my car is parked.
Yeah, you might have that. Where I left my keys or anything like that. But I literally was thinking about China. I was like, I don't even have a map. I'm in Beijing. I vaguely can understand Chinese in some very limited ways, but I don't even know the name of the hotel we're staying in. It's on my Google Maps. Okay, what is it called? And I was like, do you know the name of the hotel? And she was like, no. And I was like,
I thought you had it. No, I thought
was like,
you had it.
I was like, so if our phones had quit, we'd be screwed. What if you lose that laptop? That's your main, your main attachment to the world, and you have all your stuff on there, and it's gone. So how long can you do without it? If you say, I'm going to call X company and order a new one today because I just happen to have that much money in my bank account, and and they say it'll be 2 weeks before you get it, and you go, okay, so what do you do in the meantime? I mean, you need to have a plan for that, because your whole life may revolve around it. People can't function their calendar. You lose your whole calendar and you can't get to it anymore.
God,
Or you're down at the library trying to use the public computer, trying to see your Google. Yeah, have fun with that. So you need to figure that out before you do anything else. If you're a business, you may have requirements.
Yeah, through like federal regulation.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get to 7 years of this and 7 years of that. And humans, all you humans, you do have some requirements. You may not know it. The IRS can audit 7 years. Think about that. If the IRS calls you today, and you're going, oh, Doug, I don't make that much money. I don't care. The IRS calls you right now, not that fake call either, like, hello, this is Officer Friendly. You have been selected for IRS audit. Please give me your name. And, I hate those things. But think about this. If the IRS called you for real, they send a letter. They would never call. That's, just to be clear. The IRS would send you a formal letter that says you have been selected for audit for your tax return for 2012.
Ooh, I won.
Yeah. Yay. Oh, guess what? You're going to have to produce everything that you claimed on there and prove it. And so that means you need 1099s and all these things that or W-2s or whatever kind of things you have. So all that may be important to you, and you may need to keep it up. And you've got video. You got video of your baby being born. I don't, because I thought, who wants to see that?
Yeah, I know.
I was like, I don't. I saw it once, and that was enough.
Oh, God.
The gruesome parts were pretty good, but
there's blood everywhere.
There was too. Boy, it was grim. Let me tell you, it got medieval in there. Let me tell you. But we liked that part. It was all the other parts that were they were like handing me a baby, and I'm like, I listen to this. I had never in my whole life, when my daughter was born, my wife had some complications. She's fine, but they handed me a baby. It was the first time in my entire life I ever touched a baby.
Ooh,
ever. And they were like, here, hold this. I was like, oh, God, this wasn't how this was supposed to work. But so anyway, back to this. So how far back can you recreate all this stuff? And there's so many things that if you start thinking about it, that you start thinking, how do I get those things? You may not even be able to get into your accounts.
Yeah.
I have accounts that if my LastPass is down, I don't know what the passwords is, because I generated these 32-character passwords with LastPass, and now I can't get in, and on and on. Your term paper. You got to turn it tomorrow. My dog ate my homework. In fact, Stella the dog was in here earlier, so she's not in here now, or you'd be hearing her growling at me because she doesn't like my cats or something like that. But so how long can you live? Well, how long? I don't know. I mean, this is a question I have to ask myself, and it's very tricky and complicated when I sit down and start trying to ask it. Every person has a different set of answers for this, and there's a different set of answers for businesses and individuals. But at the end of the day, it's really the same thing. You have to figure out, what does this look like, and how am I going to get back to where I was when this started?
Right.
Because it's very, very, very frightening. And if you've ever had a failure, you'll know just how frightening it is.
Oh, yeah.
And so what's your time horizon? Is it today? Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it 3 hours? Is it 15 minutes? That's the first thing you got to do.
Yep.
The second thing is out of band. I mean, I can't tell you this enough, and you don't like it because it sucks. I hate out of band. It's a pain. But listen, out of band means you have to have a set of backups that cannot be touched by you or the internet. You have to, because that's what's going to save you from ransomware. So you got to think about that time horizon. You've got to figure out, okay, a week I can survive, even a month, whatever it is. And you've got to get that critical collection, and you've got to back that up out of band. And now I'll tell you how I do it. You can think about other ways to do it. I do it with a remote server that I just happen to have. So this is a remote server that's sitting in a safe place elsewhere. It's not in my location. So if my house burns down, that server's still there. Lightning strikes, flood, fire, famine, dark of night, plagues of locusts, rains of frogs, all these kind of things will not affect that server, or they will affect that server, but they won't affect me. So that out of band means you got to get it out of the range. And the other piece of out of band is, don't forget, the physical world is there. If there's a tsunami, well, we live on the coast. I mean, I can see the ocean from my house. So like when that 75-meter tall wave comes, I'll be like, wow, would you look at that? That's the, but you want it to look long because it'll be like, oh, there it goes. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's gone.
But I mean, is your out of band backup sitting 5 blocks away? That's going to get hit with that as well. So you really should think a little bit about the cloud. Makes some of that easier, but it can't be a live cloud. Right. So if you're using OneDrive, which is great, you remember OneDrive's connected to that local drive. So if your OneDrive is sitting in Bangladesh, that's pretty good, because that means if a tsunami hits Rhode Island, Bangladesh is probably okay, and vice versa. But the problem is, if you get hit with ransomware, it's going to jump across into that OneDrive. So if you want to use OneDrive, you need to find a way to isolate things, either by encrypting them on OneDrive or protecting them somehow. And that gets a little snaky, so you're definitely going to want to think that through. Yeah, but also, like you were mentioning at the beginning of the show, Doug, it's not a one-and-done thing. It's like a combination of all of these things so that you have redundancy. Right. And, you want to make sure that that data is protected one way or another. I completely agree. Well, 3 ways, really. Well, and I mean, yeah, and again, so you also need that real-time backup for the hardware failure. So that's the one that's saving you when you're just sitting there typing your term paper, and boom, the computer just goes, and you don't know what you're going to do. And if you are, and you should be using an out-of-band backup, make sure that your computer is clean before you plug or reattach that drive to that infected machine. Otherwise, you're just going to infect the backup. Right. And when you restore the backup, the malware is still there. So you have to be really careful about that. And the other thing about, and we're running out of time, so we'll pick this up again next time, but the other thing about out of band is that you have to be careful that you have multiple of those. So don't just rely on one. Make one at, like here's what I do. So every year, at the end of the year, I make an out-of-band backup. I literally burn it. It's huge. I move it over onto this big server that's sitting elsewhere, and I just copy it over there. I also do that about monthly, and I don't delete the old ones, because that way I have a place and time I can return to if I ever need to. Because remember, if you get infected with malware or ransomware, a lot of this stuff sits on your system for days and days and days before it does anything. Right. So if you have all your backups and the ransomware is sitting on your machine, and then you copy the ransomware to your backup, when you restore, guess what? The ransomware goes, ha ha, you thought you would beat me. I don't think so, sucker. Now, do you want to pay, or do you want to watch Donnie go down the shredder? Like, oh, there he goes. Listen to him scream. Oh, I want to see Donnie go down the shredder. Oh, we're going to have to do that live. I'll bring a shredder next time. And a picture of Donnie. A picture of Donnie, whoever that is, but we'll have to find, somebody's going to be the picture of Donnie. So so listen, next week we're going to pick this back up. We're going to talk about more of these things, about different strategies, and we will bring a picture of Donnie, or you could send us a picture. Is what? I know what he's saying. I know what Donnie he's thinking about. I don't know if we want to do that, but we try to avoid those kind of nasty political things on the show. But but next week we'll bring a shredder, and we'll shred a picture of Donnie, whoever that is, to show you just exactly. We can solicit donations for our favorite charity. There you go. Exactly. So we'll think of something. Thank you for watching today. We'll pick this up next time on Secure Digital Life. Bye.